VocalEye Almost Live Zoom. Sighted People Suck. Hosted by Amy Amantea. With special guest, Leona Godin.
Welcome to this VocalEye Almost Live event. My name is Amy Amantea. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Associate Director here at VocalEye. I am your host for these Almost Live events, and I am a member of the blind community. And I want to just, as I do every week, thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart for joining us week after week in this space, for providing testimonials, for your experiences in this space. Some of you have provided such beautiful words. We read them all. Thank you so much for sharing those. Some of you have provided financial contributions. There's a link in the chat if you have capacity to make a donation. That's lovely. It's not an obligation. But thank you so much for spending your valuable time in the VocalEye space. We very much appreciate your support. If you happen to be joining us on our YouTube channel, watching these lovely Almost Live events, you can support VocalEye by clicking those like and subscribe buttons. And you can always find information on our website, www.vocaleye.ca, and you can connect with us there as well. VocalEye is broadcasting to you all from the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, in particular the Squamish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. Now, I have been invited to attend a youth powwow in July. I've never attended a powwow before, so it prompted me to find out a little bit more about what a powwow is. So I have learned a few things and I wanted to share them with you. So the origin and the definition of powwow, the origin of the term powwow, and they're spelling powwow as one word, P-O-W-W-O-W, as one word. And I always thought it was two words, but in my research, they're spelling it as one word. So powwow can be traced back to the Algonquin, who used the words spelled this way, P-A-U-W-A-U, to describe a medicine man or a shaman, or a gathering of spiritual leaders in a healing ceremony. Others claim that the term comes from the Pawnee, from the word pawa, spelled P-A-W-A, meaning to eat, which can reference a large gathering of people for the purpose of celebration or communication of an event. The history of a powwow. Colonial and assimilation policies in Canada and in the United States during the 19th and early 20th centuries sought to outlaw Indigenous ceremonies such as powwows. In Canada, the Indian Act obstructed the celebration of powwows until 1951. Despite such restrictions, many Indigenous groups continued to hold powwows in secret throughout the first half of the 20th century. Today, powwows are pan-Indigenous events, often open to the general public, that celebrate various aspects of Indigenous spirituality, community, and identity. Both personal and cultural, powwows typically take place on reservations or in urban centers across Canada during the summer weekends. Despite some differences in powwow music and dance styles among nations, all powwows serve to honor Indigenous heritage and to celebrate an evolving culture. They also promote cultural respect and health for people young and old, and do so in an inclusive setting. And as I think about this, what strikes me is the sentence about powwows often being open to all. And I know that if you do a deeper dive, when I was reading more about powwows, they have some ceremonies that are in particular for First Nations only. They have some that are sort of set more around contests. And so they have different types of powwow settings. I obviously have been invited to one that is open to public, to non-Indigenous peoples. But what strikes me about that is after colonization and what many settlers in our history how settler peoples have treated Indigenous folks over the last hundreds of years, that there's still this willingness to say, hello, please join us. Come learn about our culture. We want you in our spaces. And oftentimes there's not that reciprocation in the other direction. There's not a lot of maybe settlers that are saying, come join us. We want you in our spaces. And I feel very privileged to have been invited to take part in a powwow here on the North Shore. So I just want to share that with you all. And when I get to go, I'll share with you what my experience was like. It's not until July, so I have some time. So I'll share with you that. A big welcome to you all for this Wednesday, February the 28th, 2024. We're proud to offer you our Almost Live event 145. And today in this space, we have a friend joining us from New York State. In fact, I think it's New York City in New York State. So I don't want to wait any longer. Let's just bring Leona into the space because I'm tired of having my square take up all the space.
Hello.
Hello, Leona. How are you?
I'm good, and I am zooming in from New York City.
It is New York City.
It is New York City.
I love it.
In a very New York City apartment, I must say, for those of you who have any vision, there's like my messy Manhattan apartment is behind me. So there you go.
Well, okay, so you just said messy, but like, what is a typical New York apartment?
Well, it's small.
It's okay.
It's small. Well, I will say that the funny thing is that by any other standards, our place would be very small, but we actually feel quite lucky. We've got a very kind of open, fairly good sized studio. So so everything's in one space, but there's like a living room area over there, and there's the kitchen over there, and there's a bedroom area over there. So yeah, small by any other standards, but not so bad for Manhattan.
So how many square footage is a typical? We're like 400 square feet, 500 square feet?
Oh man, that's really small, isn't it?
I don't know.
I think they do get that small. Yeah. I mean, my friend had a studio that was, I mean, literally all you could really fit was like a bed and an end table, and then the kitchen was in like a closet sized.
That's like a parking space.
It's like a parking space.
That's
it's like a postage stamp.
Yeah, that's a micro.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's the price you pay for living in New York, right?
There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. It's awfully fun. So there's that.
I would pay that price for living in New York. I could fit in
the classic New York, shoebox. Amy, come to New York.
Yeah. I know Tony keeps trying to get me to come to New York. I want to be there. I want to be there. So it's the threat. I'm coming. So Leona, this space is all about you. Some folks in this space know you. Some folks don't know you. So what do we need to know about you?
Well, I started out my adult life as an academic. I made a severe left turn and became a performer and a writer. And so I have ever since been, sort of doctor of philosophy / comedian / sometimes accordion player / author of a book called Their Plant Eyes, A Personal and Cultural History of Blindness, and a storyteller, which is the hat that I'm wearing this evening with y'all.
Yeah, I'm sure there might be some folk or two in this space that read Their Plant Eyes, and maybe even have experienced some of your work either in person or streamed over the years. Why the left turn? Why the drastic academic to performer?
Well, actually, that's one of the stories a little bit that's coming your way.
Okay.
But I will say that no, I'm going to save it because it is in the story. So let's talk about it after. Yeah, when you have a little bit more information, and then we can open that conversation.
I love it. No spoilers.
No spoilers. Darn it. Because there's of course more to say, but I might as well say what I'm saying in the story, and then we can open it up a little bit more in our chatty time.
That sounds perfect to me. Okay, so tonight we called this episode Sighted People Suck.
Yes.
That's obviously the name of your show. That's your
by the way, like all caps and an exclamation mark. So there you go.
Double underlined, bright yellow text. Why this title? What's the inspiration for this show?
Yeah. Well, first of all, this collection of stories, there are more than what I'm sharing this evening, but um, these stories are both about my journey as a performer and also as my journey to sort of accepting and owning, I would say even more than accepting, but owning my blindness. So that's really what these stories are about. And a big theme in these stories and in my writing, and I think in most contemporary conversations about disability, is that it's a cultural construction, right? And it's not just about our eyes not working that makes being a blind person hard, but it's about the way that the sighted world treats us that makes it way harder than it ought to be.
Yep.
And so that's kind of the theme and the trajectory. And it's also meant to be a little bit funny, right? I mean, it's meant to be funny because it's like, I think a lot of sighted people don't even think of themselves as like a thing, right? I mean, I think that they're like, we are normal and you're abnormal, right? So it's also just trying to call attention to the fact that sightedness, blindness, these are constructions, right? That have a lot of baggage that go along with them that doesn't really have anything to do with seeing or not seeing.
I love that. Can we write that on a t-shirt somewhere?
Yeah, how do we do
We
it?
should
How
put
do we
that
do
on a
it? Yeah,
t-shirt.
yeah, let's brainstorm. Let's
Yeah.
brainstorm.
I love that. And on the back of the t-shirt, we can have it in large print, and on the front of the t-shirt, we can have it in little tiny, 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 tiny print.
That's right. That's right. You
You're just
only see as well as the font size.
That's right, exactly. And then we can put it in calligraphy style and all sorts
That's
of tricky
right.
styles of
And
fonts,
different languages and
different languages. We can
Mhm.
have braille dots. We can do all sorts of fun stuff with
Mhm.
it.
Oh, yes.
So,
Access is everywhere. It's just a matter of like, do you admit that you are using it or not, right? I mean, access is
oh,
what humans do. That's a whole nother
but
topic of
relevant.
conversation. Yeah,
But
yeah.
totally, totally relevant. One of the things we've talked about in this space before with artists, and I think something that the community probably knows really well is, the pandemic was a thing that we all went through
Mhm.
and it was difficult. But folks with disabilities know how to adapt.
Mhm.
It's something that we have had to do our whole lives, right?
Mhm.
Stuff gets thrown at us and we adapt and
Yeah.
we try and make lemonade, because what other choices do we have? And so
Mhm.
um, that's what happened. That's how I feel like the pandemic was, is that there were some of us who were maybe a little bit more able to adapt than the air quotes able-bodied world who was like, I don't know what to do with my life, right?
Yeah.
Not that it wasn't difficult, because it was. Certainly it was. But then there were
Yeah.
also some silver linings that came out of it that were great for access moving forward. So,
Look at Zoom. I mean, my gosh,
right?
it's like pretty cool to be Zooming here. I don't know. Were you guys doing Zoom before the pandemic?
We were not.
Yeah.
No, we were not.
So
We
there
were
you
not
go.
not connecting communities in this way
Yeah.
without that little push.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So tonight you're going to share with us four stories.
Yep.
Like you said, you have a collection. So four is not the end of the collection, but the beginning of the collection. How did you choose these four stories out of all the different ones you could choose from?
Well, the performance that I did in November that was called "Sighted People Suck" it was kind of I would say it was sort of like six stories. I've combined two of those stories this evening. Um, and I'm trying to give a whole kind of sense of the arc. So you are going to get the first story, you're getting two of the ones in the middle, and then you're going to get the last story. So it's kind of the whole arc of the show, just minus a couple of stories, and we can talk about those if we have time. Um, some of these stories I've told several times on different stages here in New York City. Some of them I created just for the show. But I wanted to give a sense of that whole arc. And so that's how I chose these four stories tonight.
All right. Well, I say that we start to dive into this, and just so our friends in the audience know, our format is going to be typical to what you've experienced before, where we might introduce a piece, and then Leona's going to take the stage, and then afterwards, Leona and I will chat, and then we'll introduce a piece, and Leona will take a stage, and we'll just rinse and repeat for the four stories And at the end of that, you'll have a chance to ask Leona questions or share comments, whatnot. So pretty typical. But in the interim where we have discussion, this is where Leona can fill in some gaps in that arc that you're talking about, or we can unpack a little bit. So anything that you want to say, Leona, to set up this first piece that you're going to read?
No, this is really, you're going to be getting this just like you would if you were in a live performance. So we're going to start at the very beginning.
All right. Well, my friend, I am going to turn off my camera and I am going to offer you the stage. It is yours.
Thank you, Amy. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. I'm going to kick things off with a brief self-description. I am a blind woman of a certain age. On a good day, AI tells me that I appear to be in my 30s or 40s, so we're going to go with that. I have long brown hair, and I come from a long line of Northern and Southern European peasants. This evening, I am wearing a sheer black turtleneck over a dress that is printed with bats, thousands and thousands of gray bats flying with yellow eyes in a starry sky. So I have a little PSA to my blind brothers and sisters out there today. This is a really cool outfit that I'm wearing. So if your sighted companion doesn't think so, you should definitely not take them clothes shopping. You might even reconsider them as a friend, but who am I to overstep? Speaking of sighted people, they always ask the same question. Like 9 times out of 10, sighted strangers ask, "Were you born like that?" And I'm supposed to know what they're talking about. Was I born a woman? Was I born a smartass? No, 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 no. What they mean is, was I born blind? Well, the answer to that was no, I was not born blind, but I was born a drama nerd. This was way back before the term even existed. I took lots of acting classes when I was a kid. I had a number of little monologues that I would perform at summer camp talent shows. My favorite was a Dorothy Parker monologue. And now this was not like drama camp, mind you. This was just regular old Esprit sweatshirt wearing 80s summer camp. So while other kids were lip syncing to the Go-Go's, I hit them with my Algonquin round table wit, like, oh, I drowned my love in a dirty martini. And the kids would clap politely. I loved the glamour of the theater, the razzle-dazzle, the costumes, but I also had an earthy side. I loved animals. So I found the perfect volunteer job working at the nature trail at the San Francisco Zoo. Every Saturday, I presented animals to kids and their parents as they walked along the nature trail. It was really fun to tell them and sometimes let them pet the animals. There were ferrets and rabbits and skunks, deskunked, of course. There was a crow named Jewel and a baby alligator named Charlie. There were turtles, land and aquatic, and lots of snakes. I loved the snakes. I worked at the zoo on Saturdays from age 10 to 13. And these were the very early days of my eye disease, my progressive eye disease. At first, it was super subtle, but I did notice a few little changes. Like when I walked from the bright outdoors into the relative dark of the animal house, the aptly named animal house where we kept them, my eyes took longer to adjust. For a minute or two, I couldn't see hardly anything, and it startled me. But then I figured out that I could keep myself walking straight by paying attention to the glints of light reflecting off of the metal cages in the mammal section to the right, and with the glows of light from the heat lamps in the reptile section to my left. As I worked there longer and longer, I got trained on bigger and badder animals. I was so excited when I got trained on Matilda, the boa constrictor. I'd be on the nature trail with this 6-foot long, 4 inches in diameter boa draped around my neck. People would stop dead at 40 paces. And by people, I mean adults. You know, the kids were totally fine with it. But the adults would call to me and they would say, "Oh no, I'm not coming anywhere near that thing. It's gonna bite me." And I would call out to them with a big smile, "No, no, no, don't worry. Matilda won't bite you. She's a constrictor. She strangles her prey." I felt very powerful. Well, one chilly afternoon, I was at the rabbit station with little Joe, a Netherland dwarf rabbit with a really pretty deep gray coat. It was late afternoon, and the famous San Francisco fog was rolling in off the ocean. You know, it was one of these cold summer days that San Francisco is famous for. Like the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco, that kind of thing. There were hardly any visitors, and the rabbit and I were shivering in our respective corners. I kept checking my Swatch watch like every 5 minutes, and the time was crawling. Finally, a woman and her son walk up, and I go into my spiel. "This is little Joe. He's a Netherland dwarf rabbit. So yes, he is full grown. Netherland dwarfs are one of the smallest breeds of rabbits, weighing only 1.5 to 2.5 pounds. The average life expectancy..." The woman interrupts me and she says, "But where's the rabbit?" I gesture to my left, "Over there." She says, "That's a rock." I'm totally blind now, but back when I had low vision, it often happened that if I knew what something was, I could actually see it. Because of course, seeing happens not just in the eyes, but in the brain. Indeed, it was a rock, and I turn all the way around and I find little Joe. He's hiding behind me. I pick him up and I present him to the kid. But the damage was done. I felt the blush creep from the bottom of my neck to the roots of my hair. I was so ashamed. But why shame? I mean, I didn't mind telling people that I had an eye disease, especially when I learned it was a rare eye disease. I thought it made me kind of unique. I was that kind of kid. But I was terrified of the B word, of looking blind. Because in movies, in books, in real life, sighted people say, "I'd rather be dead than blind." And think of all the ways we hear blind being used negatively. Blind faith, blind rage, blind drunk, blind to this and blind to that. It doesn't really indicate loss of sight, but ignorance and thoughtlessness, even unconsciousness. So why would I want to be associated with that? And so began my long journey of trying to pass as sighted. Now, as humans, we all suffer, we all die, we are all frail, but so much of our suffering is human-made and unnecessary, like that ableism that made me ashamed of what I was becoming. I quit the zoo when I was 13, and that was just in time to start spending my Saturday afternoons going to the park and getting drunk with my friends. Then I started high school, which was kind of a bust. I was having difficulty reading standard size print by that point, and I wasn't getting any help. The only good thing to come out of high school is that I met my best friend, Indigo. Yes, she's the daughter of hippies. We showed up every day in drama class wearing basically the same outfits, black petticoats with no skirts, pointy Nana boots with skull buckles, and our hair was like different shades of manic panic pink. So of course we had to become best friends. As I said, high school was kind of a bust, and I finally dropped out. Then I started City College of San Francisco, where I got help for the first time. And I got tricked out with my very first accessible computer, a huge desktop computer with magnification software. That made it possible for me to transfer to UC Santa Cruz. That's University of California at Santa Cruz. Go Slugs! The banana slug was our school mascot. I graduated in the middle of the year, so I had some time to kill before grad school. And Indigo said, hey, let's move to New Orleans. And I said, okay. That is the end of that story. I'm going to take a sip of water while we, oh, thank you, thank you.
It's hard in the Zoom room where you're in the vacuum and you're not hearing
You're
people
in the
laugh,
vacuum.
right?
It's
I
so
know.
painful. It's so painful. I know. It's
I
like,
was laughing.
yay!
Yeah.
I know you can't see, you can't hear. You're like, I'm just gonna assume. That's all I can
I
do.
want the dress with the bats on it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'll send you a link. I actually already got another friend to get one, so there's gonna be a whole posse. We have to have like you know, like a internet meme or something. Blind chicks with bat dress or something.
Yeah, blind as a bat.
Blind as
Really,
a bat.
seriously. Yeah. I love how you talk about the iteration of how we use the word blind, though, because it's very true when we talk about that as part of the microaggression bit of it. You ever see there's a commercial on TV where they talk about it's the one where they talk about like I think it's a Febreze commercial. Maybe I'm not allowed to say that, but I just did. Where they talk about people being nose blind.
Yes.
Where they can't, you
yes.
you
Where there's a word for that. It's anosmia. Like there's a word for it. Yeah, it's pretty.
So of course you would know that. You're an academic.
Yeah.
You would know that.
I'm also a little smell obsessed, so there's that.
Uh-huh. Of course you are. We know this. We'll talk about this in a bit. So this is, yeah. This is the beginning of your, well, this is the story of the beginning of the journey.
Yes, exactly. So this one is definitely less of one that I would have performed like as a standalone piece, and it was more of a story that was definitely written for the show as a ... right there. And the next story kind of picks up, you know, right there at New Orleans. So there's no break from this first one to the second one. I will say that there is a bat story that I am not doing, which I had to wear the bat dress anyways, because I do want to reclaim the blind as a bat, you know, thing. Like bats are cool, right? I mean, bats are so cool.
And that's
like, why is that an insult? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
No, and it's a true thing because bats are blind. So we're not insulting anybody by saying blind as a bat, because that's
and they zip around and catch mosquitoes in the middle of the night. Like
they use echolocation.
Awesome. Yep.
So, I'll be blind as a bat. Yeah, please.
Seriously, yeah.
Give me their skills. I'll take them. Yeah, okay, that's cool. So I don't know, when you think about the writing of this, because you're an academic, I'm guessing that writing comes easily to you. I've said many times in this space that writing for me is a challenge. How easy or difficult is it for you to put the old anecdote, pen to paper, but for you it's fingers to keyboard,
fingers to keys,
or voice to recording device, right? What's your method? What's your process?
Okay, so I definitely am a touch typer. So typing is what I do. I do have a braille display. I got a Mantis, so but I still realize that like I just I'm too fast at, you know, touch typing, or I'm not really that fast, but I'm a lot faster than typing braille. So even though I like reading braille out, my preferred method is definitely typing in. So that means that I can type in also without having any voice coming out. That's the really wonderful thing about having the braille display, which has been kind of a game changer. Although I will say that I'm still very slow at Braille, which is why I'm still doing my Cyrano method of reading, which is having, an earbud in my ear, jabbering at me. And so I call it the Cyrano method after, Cyrano de Bergerac.
Bergerac?
Yeah. So I usually call him like a very passionless Cyrano de Bergerac. And so writing, it's a complicated thing because I do so many different kinds of writing.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I write every day. Now I do everything from journal writing to, kind of writing out these stories to, I'm not going to say academic writing because I really don't do academic writing, even though I was trained as an academic, although people might think that I do skew in that direction sometimes. I would say that the most writing that I do is like personal essays. That's kind of where the book came from, like personal reported pieces. So a blend, really what the subtitle is, like a blend of personal and cultural anecdotes, stories, history, that sort of thing. That's probably the writing that I do the most. So sort of creative nonfiction, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I, it's not, there's so many different aspects to writing. I mean, writing well is really hard. Writing well is very challenging. Putting words on my computer is not challenging. Shaping it into something that is beautiful or important or necessary or whatever I want it to be, is challenging and takes, I would say, just simply takes time, right? And love and care and thought and all those things that you sometimes feel like you don't always have time for.
Fair enough. I'm glad I'm not the only one who feels like it's challenging. It makes my soul a little bit lightened when somebody of your talent says that out loud. That it's just not so
Oh,
easy as, putting your fingers on your keyboard and it just comes all out. Because for some people it really is, and for some people it's not. So
yeah. And the shaping of it is the thing that I think, again, is the hardest. One interesting thing about the, like, moving between something that is more for the page and more for the stage, is that I am finding in this journey of kind of creating stories that are more for the stage, that you kind of find the nugget of things. It's quite an interesting experience. I'm not going to write the same way for what I'm going to be performing as what's going to be published
right.
for the page. But there are ways in which those two expressions really help each other out. The kind of expansion and contraction that needs to happen when you tell a story one way or tell a story the other way, I think is kind of a useful editing tool to find out what's important. Yeah. So that's been something that I've just recently realized, because I've come back to performing after many years away in the last year or so. Yeah, so this has kind of been a new journey for me, I guess.
Somebody needs to teach creative writing workshops, I think. Maybe.
I actually am teaching my
Oh,
first creative writing workshop at the San Francisco Lighthouse.
right.
We are doing our first I'm doing my first in-person one. We did have a virtual one, which I can't remember if I let you know about that or not, but the next time
No.
around, I definitely will. The next time around. But
Yeah.
sign up, the San Francisco Lighthouse for the Blind it got just so much programming going on, just like y'all do. Like they've got a lot of cool stuff going on. So
Awesome.
yeah, I would love to do it more though, for sure.
So as we embark into story number 2,
Mhm.
how do we want to set this one up? Or don't we? I don't
You know
know.
what? This one moves smoothly. So I think we just left. We'll just reminder. We just left with Indigo saying, "Let's move to New Orleans," and that's basically where it picks right back up again.
All right. Remind folks what age you're at, roughly.
So I just graduated college. It did take me a little bit longer because I went to City College first.
Like mid
So I'm
20s?
in like my early 20s. Yeah,
Early.
like my early to mid 20s. Oh no, yeah, early to mid 20s.
All right, I'm ready to hear this. The Adventures of Leona and Indigo.
Yes, exactly.
All right, stage is yours.
In New Orleans, Indigo and I formed a band. We were an all-girl band called Down There. We were in the South. Indigo was the lead singer, and I was the drummer. We were kind of awesome, and we were also kind of terrible, but we were punk. So it didn't matter if we couldn't really sing or play our instruments. We wore vintage slips and Doc Martens boots. The New Orleans freaks loved us. Our fourth gig was kind of a big one. It wasn't just our, dozen or so friends in the corner bar. No, this was like 150 people in a pretty big club. And of course, we arrived late. It was packed and dark, and my night vision was terrible. I couldn't really recognize faces very well. Now, Indigo is my best friend to this very day, but that night she pulled kind of a lead singer prima donna move. She's like, I don't have anything to set up. I'm gonna head to the bar. And the guitarist and the bassist, they jump on stage, they plug in doodly doodly, and they're off to the bar. So here I am schlepping in my drums, bumping into people. Sorry, excuse me, sorry, excuse me, sorry. I finally get my drums on stage and I set up, which takes a long time because I've only done this like once or twice before. And I'm sweating, not just because it's New Orleans, but I am stressed. Before you know it, it is time to get started playing our set, and I didn't even get my damn beer. 2 songs into our set, and my snare flops over like a flaccid snare. I don't know what you know about snare drums, but they have lots of knobs and turny things to get the perfect angle for those rim shots and rolls. Now, I couldn't figure out which one was the culprit, so I tried to hold it up with my fish-netted knees, and that made it pretty hard to kick the bass drum. It made it hard to kind of like keep the beat. So the only good news was that I couldn't see the dirty looks my bandmates were throwing at me. I was so embarrassed, uncomfortable, self-conscious, so not punk. It wasn't until decades later, like yesterday, I realized that the punk thing to do would have been to let the snare drum clatter to the ground and kick it aside. The punk thing to do would have been to own my blindness, to bump into people with my drums and not apologize. No, I'm sorry. The punk thing to do would have been to use my white cane and crack people in the shins with it. But the problem was that the stigma of blindness had seeped into my bones. I was terrified of looking or acting blind. It was toxic ocularcentrism. And by the way, toxic ocularcentrism will be the name of my late life punk band. But of course, I didn't have the word ocularcentrism back then, so I just felt ashamed of my poor vision. Now I know that blind shame is like smoking, a bad habit, nasty and hard to break. Because I did have a white cane, but it remained safely tucked deep down in my dark closet. Sometimes it would creep into my backpack where it would remain. I know now that this is pretty common among many newly blind people. It's this dangerous thing called folded cane syndrome. So I get caught outside after dark alone and I play a really unfun game of pinball, like bumping into trees and hydrants and people's dogs. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. I would think to myself, why don't you just pull out the dang white cane? It would make everything so much easier. But of course, I knew exactly why. It was the stigma. I knew that as soon as I pulled out that white cane, people would no longer see me as a girl, but as some pitiable, unsexed blind person if they saw me at all behind the blaring white cane. And so I continued to try to pass as sighted. Now, my brains were pickled pretty much the entire time I lived in New Orleans, but somehow I managed to get those grad school applications out. And I know this because a year and a half after I moved to New Orleans with Indigo, I moved to New York City by myself. I was a very diligent grad student for the first 2 years, and then I started slipping off the rails. The first thing that happened is that in a shameless attempt to avoid the stigmatic white cane, I got paired with my first guide dog. His name was Millennium, and he was a gorgeous black lab. We flew through the streets of New York City. I felt so free for the first time in years. I felt so free that I dumped my boyfriend. During the painful moving out period, the boyfriend looked deep into the amber eyes of Millennium and said, "You won, buddy." Then I got a dissertation grant, which meant I had way too much time on my hands because I was not writing my dissertation. Millennium and I began wandering the Lower East Side and East Village of New York City looking for open mics. And soon I developed my somewhat slutty, almost always drunken, angry, blind chick shtick. Want to hear a joke? Okay, here we go. Sex is the great equalizer. I don't feel like a blind person when I'm in bed with someone. I don't feel my disability unless I get mixed up with some freaky freak with a fetish for eye contact. Okay, well, that's about as good as it gets, my friends. Turns out I didn't really have the stomach for comedy, for stand-up, and so I decided to start doing performance art. No laughs required, awkward silences, bring them on. I called my new act the Avant Accordion Brain Smash. It involved a loop pedal, and you guessed it, an accordion. One time I was about to step on stage, and this woman came up to me and she said, "Well, you must sing like an angel." Because of course she thought that, like all blind people are innocent and angelic and have perfect pitch. But I was like, no, I'm not that kind of blind person. So I step on stage and assault her sighted sensibilities by bellowing songs about evil Renaissance dictators. This may not come as a surprise, but I did not find fame nor fortune with my Avant Accordion Brain Smash act, but it did help me find a man in a basement theater open mic, as you do. His name is Alabaster Rum, and he is a composer and singer. In true artist fashion, our first couple of years together were very tumultuous, but then we finally declared our love. And by that time, I was paired with my second guide dog, Igor. Igor was a beautiful, tall, blonde German shepherd, but sadly, he was not long for this world. He had all kinds of terrible allergies. One day, he went into the animal medical center for routine surgery, and he never came out. But when he was first in the hospital, we just thought he would be out in a few days. Alabaster and I were walking together to visit Igor, and I was with my cane. Now, Alabaster had never been with me and my cane, but he knew how I had struggled with the stigma of it. He says, "Wow, that guy practically jumped into the bushes to get out of the way of the cane. People are scattering in front of the cane. This is a magic cane. You should never feel ashamed of the cane." Now, I thought that that was pretty wonderful. And so I told him about Jim Knipfel, patron saint of all blind punks. In his memoir, Slackjaw, he talks about how he too had trouble accepting the white cane. But once he finally did so, he noticed that people part in front of me like the fucking Red Sea. Alabaster and I laughed, and we never agreed who came up with this next bit. But because this is my story and I'm on the virtual stage, it was me. I had the brilliant idea. I said, I know, I'm going to name my cane Moses, a symbol not of shame, but of power. And Moses he has been ever since. I'm on Moses the 6th now. Long live Moses. That is the end of that story. Spotlight switch. Applause. Thank you. Thank you. Taking a bow. Taking a bow.
Your guide dogs have had the coolest names.
Yes, I know. I was really lucky. They were pretty awesome dogs too.
So how long has it been now for you in Alabaster?
Woo. So that was like 2013. Yeah, so 10 going on 11 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really lovely. We should all be so lucky to to be in the basement playing an accordion and meet
And find a man.
meet our forever person, right?
Yeah, we think so. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
see. Life is long.
Life is long. That's right. That could be a whole other theater piece right there.
That's right.
Okay, so we're on a trajectory here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
is,
performing. Yeah. No, you tell me. What is it? What am
oh,
I
you
doing?
no, you're the artist. I'm letting you speak.
No, I want to hear what you think. Have I got a trajectory going? Yeah. Like what?
Well, of course you do. I mean, I now it just makes me curious about because you had said from the beginning that you had kind of amalgamated a couple of stories together
Mm.
and that we could fill in a few gaps along the way. And I'm wondering, well, where are the gaps? Because it feels like it's flowing quite nicely, but maybe we're just not at gaps yet.
Well, you know what, there was kind of a gap insofar as when I did the live show, I actually did kind of go into the performance stuff a little bit more. And so I actually did do an accordion, a very sloppy accordion bit in the middle of it. I dragged out that first part a little bit more, but you know what, this story has already been morphing because as we kind of alluded to, I've been doing a different kind of performance in recent weeks. I did some of these stories in a show called Becoming Blind, in parentheses, as a bat, a scented storytelling journey. And so these stories have been kind of mixed up a little bit. And so I've been doing this blended version, this kind of cane-centric version of these, what used to be sort of two stories, the punk story and the naming of Moses / performing in New York City story. Were kind of two separate stories before. So
Okay.
I've been blending them in this most recent version to move forward and to kind of draw attention to the fact that this is really the journey of becoming comfortable with the white cane, with holding the white cane.
Mm-hmm. I know that we thought that we could talk about the scented stuff as we go on this journey, but I think in order to like not disrupt where we are in the flow of the story, let's hold that until later.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, until after we're done, because I just don't want people to be like, oh, but now where are we back in the story? Because there again, this journey of kind of being like, do I want to be associated with the word blind? How do I feel about being blind? And that travels into this almost this empowerment around blindness, right?
That's where we're headed. That's where I'm hoping. Yeah. And this was kind of the first step. It's also in that story is the first moment that I mentioned another blind person is kind of important as well. That's also one of the ways, right, that you start to have sort of mentors, even if you, at that point, I didn't know him. Actually, I did end up meeting and am friends now with Jim Knipfel, but I remember reading his memoir, and it was one of the first that really mirrored my own experience of, going blind and feeling like you're kind of a, kind of a little rebel, kind of a little punk, and not knowing how to like reconcile those two sides of yourself. And yeah, so
And
that,
probably wondering if you're the only one in the world. There's
exactly.
moments of that. Am I the only one in the world?
Yep,
Where are the other vampires?
precisely.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into story number 3.
And this one is really a standalone. In fact, this one I've performed many times as a standalone piece. It fits because it's also about performance for sure, but it does have its own little title, which I think is kind of fun. I don't know. Should I give you the title? Or should I not give you a title? Does it give too much away? No, I don't think it. Not Blind Enough is what it's called.
Yes.
Shall we?
I think we shall, my friend. It's your stage.
In the brutally cold winter of 2014, Alabaster and I are broke. I'm in the kitchen heating up some leftover spaghetti again when my phone rings, and it's the Lighthouse for the Blind. They are looking to put together a focus group for some pharmaceutical company. They're paying $200 for 2 hours of my time. So I say, heck yeah. This is how I find myself in a room, a crowded room, with a bunch of blind people and a couple of slick marketing types. Under scrutiny are 2 prototype TV commercials for a drug that is supposed to cure a disorder that none of us have ever heard of before. They went something like this. Are you totally blind? Do you find yourself falling asleep during the day and awake all night? Is this affecting your ability to work, to play, to have the relationships, the life that you've always wanted? And it goes on and on. And of course, the drug promises to fix everything, as all pharmaceuticals claim to do, right? So this made me kind of grumpy. And I was thinking to myself, oh, yeah, right. It's not the systemic ableism or the toxic ocularcentrism that's keeping blind people down. No. It's our messed up circadian rhythm systems. Needless to say, I answered all their questions and kept most of my opinions to myself. Then I asked, so can I have my money now? And they said, thank you so much for coming in. You'll receive a check in 4 to 6 weeks. Damn. A couple of days later, I get a call from my buddy, Frank. Frank is a fellow blind performer. We always look out for each other with other opportunities. And I wish I could do his voice justice, but just know that he is an older jazz vocalist with a velvety, smooth voice. He says, yo, Leona, there's a casting call for blind actors for a national TV commercial. It's for a pharmaceutical company with some drug that cures a disorder that none of us have ever heard of before. I know what that is, I tell him. And I tell him about the focus group, and he says, yeah, that's it. But listen, don't tell them that you can see. But Frank, I can't see. I just have like a little bit of light perception. Yeah, but they only want people who are totally blind. Jesus, Frank, I spent years as a visually impaired person, and I tried to pass as sighted. And now that I'm finally owning my blindness, I'm not blind enough. Leona, just don't tell them. So I show up at the casting director's office looking all spiffy because the women in the commercials, they sounded like professionals. I'm wearing a pale gray vintage suit and my makeup's all nice. And the casting director tells me to slate my name, turn left, turn right, say your name. I do all of that. And then he says, okay, great. Come on over here to this table and fold laundry. I think to myself, fold laundry? I don't need a drug to fold laundry. I can fold laundry in the middle of the night. I thought that this drug was supposed to get me a job. Also, like, I'm totally not good at folding laundry, as Alabaster will attest to. But I'm an actor, so I act like I'm folding laundry really good. And then the casting director says, feel the sun on your face. And I'm like, I feel the sun on my face. So I guess I do a pretty good job because I get a callback. This time, the director and the producer are Skyping in from Los Angeles. And they say the same thing, slate your name, turn left, turn right. And then they say, so what's your vision like, Leona? I was totally taken off guard. I thought that we were past that hurdle. I'm a terrible liar. I'm an actor, not a liar. Plus, I'm worried that if by some miracle I land this commercial, I'm going to be on set and I'm going to be like, damn, those lights are bright. And they're going to say, go home. You lied to us. So I tell them the truth. Well, I have a little bit of light perception. Okay, they say, thanks for coming in. Bye-bye. Even the casting director was taken aback. He said, don't you want her to fold laundry? No, thanks. Next. So Alabaster is waiting outside for me, and I'm like, no go. Let's go get ourselves a bottle of Georgie. For those of you not in the know, Georgie is like rot gut vodka, because that's how we rolled back then. The next morning, I get a call from the casting director. He says, they want you, but they're concerned that you are not blind enough. Now, I don't know how much y'all drink out there, but there's a thing that happens that when you drink a lot on a given night, you wake up the next morning and you're still a little bit drunk. It's a nice, confident place to be because you've got all the bravado of being drunk with none of the slurring. I tell him, I really appreciate that they are hiring a blind actor to play a blind character. We are so tired of sighted actors putting on their blind face, their zombie stares, and winning Academy Awards. We just want to represent ourselves. People in the blind community are not hung up on who sees how much. You know, we all walk with the canes. We've got the guide dogs. We confront stigma and stereotypes every day. We have like 70% unemployment, not because we don't or can't work, but because employers are downright discriminatory. I believe that I am blind enough to represent my blind brothers and sisters. The casting director says, well, that makes sense. I'll let them know what you said. That was a Monday, and the following Monday, I was on a plane to Los Angeles, first class. Shooting the commercial was a total blast and really great money. We were not broke for a long time. And thanks to the residuals, I still get an occasional check from them almost 10 years later. And in these 10 years, things have definitely changed a lot. The entertainment industry is finally beginning to recognize all the amazing talent in the disability community. There are so many more opportunities now, but of course, there's still lots of room for improvement. Even though I am not thrilled about bolstering the evil empire of the pharmaceutical industrial complex, I am really proud of having been one of the very first blind actors to play a blind character on national television, because representation matters. That is the end of that story. I will take a sip of water.
Representation matters. I know this condition. I have seen this commercial many times. Now I don't know that I've seen the iteration with you in this commercial.
I'm the laundry one.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I too was like, who has this condition?
Yeah. It's it's worrisome, because it's apparently a very expensive, pretty major drug, that I like obviously have extreme mixed feelings about the whole thing, but the fact that they were looking for blind actors was a pretty bold thing at the time, for sure.
Oh, there's no doubt. Anytime I go for an audition and I get sides, because you only get, a small number of pages to read, and you think, well,
Yeah.
what's the rest of this story? And if I say yes to this audition and I actually book the part, and then I get on the stage and it turns out this is a story about curing blindness,
Oh, yeah.
then I have a choice to make, right? I've already booked the part, but yeah, like I want to play a blind character. There's all these things, right, that you have to kind of navigate.
Have you ever done that, Amy? Have you ever like turned it down? Like, have you ever?
No, I
Yeah,
haven't.
that'd be really hard. I mean,
It,
it's
it would
just
be,
that
and it would probably be hard from like a reputation perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I would
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But also that they're gonna just hire somebody else to do that same role. So there's not really something that you're gonna do to change that,
No,
other than to
no,
try and
and it probably
advocate from
would,
within. It's a rock and a hard
right.
place, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So
that's why we need more, blind script writers and stuff.
storytelling,
I
that's
mean,
right.
it's
That's
the whole
authentic
thing.
representation. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so yeah, we could go on and on about all the Oscar winners that have played disabled characters over the years.
Yes. Yeah. It's a thing. It's
It's a
a
thing.
thing.
It's a
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, yeah. Oh,
But I mean, that is definitely change. I mean, that is definitely changing. And now I think we almost have to pay more attention to the storylines now, right? I mean, there was this whole thing with, all the light,
we
all
cannot
of the
see.
light we cannot see, right? And, and like, okay, great, fantastic. Like they got blind actors to play, but the story was already a real problem, right? I mean, there's been a lot of people that have, I mean, first of all, of course, it's a sighted person who doesn't really know anything about blindness writing this character, and not really well. At least a lot of my friends kind of,
Yeah, it was mixed for sure.
yeah, find it very problematic how innocent and like incapable and cloistered the main character was. So yeah, that's why we need more blind writers as well as actors. So
Yep.
yeah, long way to go still, but
We certainly do, and that's the same for every equity deserving group, right?
yes.
I had a chat with a guy in Los Angeles when I was spending some time there, who was an actor. He was a black identifying man, and he was the one who said to me, "I will no longer audition for." He was an Uber driver, and he said, I'm an actor, but I'm driving Uber, and he said, "I will no longer audition for roles where I beat my where I beat my wife, or I'm a gangster, or any of those kinds of things." He said, I won't perpetuate that stereotype that black men
Right.
treat people this way." And I was like, huh, wow,
Yeah.
that's like incredible that you're taking that stand in a city like this, and where big people can say, oh, you're not going to take that role, well then we're not going to offer you any auditions.
Yeah. Did he have anything to say about that? Like, did he find that auditions are drying up, or did he not get that far with the
We didn't really
conversation?
get that
Yeah.
far, but
Yeah.
I just thought it was
Yeah.
he was very strong about it, and I just thought that's conviction. I mean, whether he continues along that line or not, I don't know, but
Yeah.
in that moment he felt very strong about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
representation.
I mean, I just, I mean, I'm not really, acting is not my thing. I mean, I think that it is hard, and like that's not where I can put my energies into the craft, right? The craft of acting is a whole nother thing. I put a lot more weight into my writing. But for a while there, I was definitely getting a lot of auditions that I don't think that I was, prepared for, that I was capable of doing, but they felt like they needed to just make sure that they checked that box,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Me too.
about 5 years ago, it seemed like, because in the end, they ended up hiring like really big, sighted actors that, I mean, like, there's no way that anybody had that big of a name that
Yeah.
is a blind person, right? So it's this bind of like, how can we have a big name blind actor until we have some representation, and
That's right.
so it was kind of like it felt like they were doing it, but it wasn't really likely,
It was for
like,
show.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
to say, well,
Look,
we
we
tried to
auditioned.
find somebody. Yeah, we tried to
Exactly.
find somebody. Yeah.
Exactly. We tried. Look how hard we tried. But instead, we went with A-lister so and so.
Yeah. I will say specifically, I remember, I don't know if this came by you as well, but a few years ago, there were lots of auditions for the show C, right?
Yep.
The Apple show C. And I mean, granted, it was wonderful that they hired Mary Lee Talkington. She's, doing great and everything, but I was auditioning for the lead role that definitely went to, a major actor. And of course, I wouldn't have been capable of doing something like that, right? I mean, they would have had to do a lot of hand holding. It would not have been worth it. But that was another show that I also took issue with, right? I talk about this a little bit in the book because, man, this idea that like the whole world will fall apart and go barbaric because blind people take over. I mean, I took exception to the entire premise. I was like, you're never going to meet a more techie group of people than blind people, right? The likelihood of the whole world stepping back 2,000 years just because it's all blind people just didn't. I don't know. It didn't feel right to me either.
Yeah.
That was kind of
And then
like,
there were some things that were really great about it, like watching
rather, yeah.
warriors fight without
Ah,
sight.
gotcha.
Like the expert fighting sequences were great.
Right.
It's like they weren't like, oh, don't pick on me. I can't see you. So you're right, though. There's no such thing as a perfect show, but it was also not written by blind folks. So
It was not written by blind folks. That was clear. So was it blind actors that were doing the warrior stuff?
some of them,
Okay.
but not all of them.
Gotcha.
Some of those were Mr. JM, Mr.
Right.
Mr. Momoa.
Right.
Yeah. All right, my friend. We're going into another story.
Righto.
Anything we need to?
This is the last story. And so the story between was the bat story, which now I'm feeling bad that I wore my bat dress and I'm not telling the bat story. But really it was just a moment in the life of me trying to not just carry the white cane, but actually use the white cane, and kind of thinking about echolocation, and that, bats are really cool. And also name checked a guy named Daniel Kish, who's known as the Batman, who teaches echolocation and flash sonar. So another sort of name check to another blind person that I think is really cool.
He is amazingly cool.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually got to meet him a couple weeks ago. We spent some days together here in New York City.
I saw a documentary about him before I was blind, doing his echolocation stuff, and I was like, that's awesome. Like, how do you do that? Anyways, yeah.
No, and he's just lovely. He's so great. It was so much fun. I totally want to train with him. I got to figure out a way. So we shall see. We shall see how that worked out. Anyway, so that's the middle story. So that is also, like totally a standalone story. So this is the last story of the whole piece of Sighted People Suck.
All right, it's your stage.
This is the point in the show when I confess, I admit, that not all sighted people suck. I like a lot of you a lot, but can we all agree that ocularcentrism definitely sucks? Ocularcentrism insists that sighted people are better than blind people, and that sighted ways of doing things are the only ways of doing things. Ocularcentrism makes being blind so much harder than it has to be. Now, perhaps some of you, sighted audience, are thinking, no way, lady, blindness definitely sucks. I don't suck. Well, all I can say is that in my experience, when you have 2 or more blind people in a room, in real life or virtual, the number one thing we complain about, hands down, the number one thing blind people complain about is sighted people. How sighted people infantilize us, disrespect us, refuse to hire us, are afraid of us, can't imagine loving us, are unwilling to get to know us, and incapable of treating us like humans, or at least like adult humans. A couple of weeks ago, I was at the drugstore with Alabaster. He was going to be heading to work and I was heading home. So I was taking all of the toilet paper and toothpaste and other stuff into my backpack. Suddenly the cashier says, "She does really good." Alabaster and I were so taken aback that he blurts out, "Good? She has a PhD. And I say, "Well, I'm right here. You can talk to me directly." But of course, that was only dealing with like half the problem. But it didn't matter. She was totally not fazed. With a big smile in her voice, she says again, "Yeah, she's blind, but she does really good." I leave the store and my blood is boiling. But as I mobility my way home, I start to cool off and I think, what the hell? I do good. I'm a blind person making my way in a world that was not built for me, in an ocular-centric world. And I do pretty good, but maybe not in the way that she thinks. I wish you could have seen me the other night, coming home on a Friday night, a little bit tipsy from dinner and drinks with 12 kick-ass disabled women artists. I shared an Uber with one of them, and now I'm living on Delancey Street, at the foot of the Williamsburg Bridge. This is Lower Manhattan, and it's full of life, let's say. There's a club just 2 doors down from me called the Delancey, and it's got velvet ropes out in front of it. So it's Friday night and drivers are in life and death races to get wherever. They're honking if there's even a hint of a stop. So the Uber driver is worried. He says, "They don't want me to stop." And I tell him, "Don't worry. When they see that we are disabled, they'll shut the heck up." My friend gets out and there's a honk. And I think, well, they can't necessarily tell that she's disabled. They can't see her unsteady gait. Surely they will calm down when they see Moses. So I push Moses out of the Uber in front of me, and there's a honk. I stand up behind Moses, and there's another honk, and another one. Now I'm really pissed, and I stand in front of the door, and I shake my fist, and I shake Moses at the line of cars, and I say, "Shut the hell up, you big jerks." And everybody that's standing at the velvet ropes of the Delancey, they erupt in cheers and claps, and I blow kisses to my fans. I give my friend a hug goodbye, and I step to my door. I stand for a moment with my back to the door. I take in all the madness of New York City on a Friday night. It's totally hectic and beautiful and entirely too damn much in the quintessential New York City way. The hip Asian restaurant is pumping out spicy deliciousness, and all the cars going up and down the Williamsburg on-ramp have got their own soundtracks playing. One car is blaring Madonna, like 1980s Madonna. Another car is blaring what I can only call psychedelic mariachi music. A third has got its bass pumping so bassy that for a moment, my heart beats in time with its music. Everybody is getting their party going in their special little snowflake ways, because diversity is what makes this city pump. Disability is part of that diversity. the different ways we sense the world, the different ways we move through the world, the different ways we are embodied in this world for such a short time. I'm reminded of the late, great disability activist, actor, writer, Neil Marcus. He said, disability is not a brave struggle or courage in the face of adversity. Disability is an art. I turn and I put my key in the lock and I step inside. The door springs shut behind me. The curtain falls on another spectacular day of performing blind, of living the art of blindness. The end.
Living the art of blindness. I love that. That is a tattoo. Get the t-shirts. That is a tattoo.
That's a tattoo. The art of blindness. Living the art of blindness. Yep.
The art of blindness. This is lovely storytelling, Leona. One of the things that I often ask artists that identify with disability is, when you perform, when you write, when you think about a piece, how much advocacy versus how much art? Where's that blend versus advocacy and art? I get asked that question all the time with my work. So
yeah,
what's that line? How much do you want it to just be a piece of art, and how much do you want it to be advocacy?
yeah. I'm still working that out. I mean, I think that this piece in particular is definitely a lot of advocacy. Obviously, I mean, it skews a little maybe TED Talky sometimes, rather than sort of what you might think of as straightforward storytelling. But the thing is that I don't know if right now I feel like I always have the luxury to I don't even know what that would mean, really, to just tell a story, right? Because I think there's just so much work to be done out there. And I find that a lot of times when I feel like sometimes when we're afraid to do advocacy, we make things maybe a little too palatable for the non-disableds out there. So this piece is certainly like the most in your face thing that I've done in terms of like taking sighted people to task. I will tell you that when I did the live performance, particularly that last story, there was a lot. I would say the audience was probably, I'm not going to say 50-50 blind and sighted, but somewhere around there, probably more sighted than blind, but not by much. And there was like a really great, I don't know how to say it, like revivalist meeting, a revivalist spirit to the thing, where like when I was sort of saying things like, how sighted people infantilize us, there was some like in the audience. So this piece was in a lot of ways for my people. It really is like, it's kind of trying to show that like this was a long ass journey for me, and it didn't have to be that long, and certainly in this day and age it doesn't have to be that long, right? So I think that and yet, listen to this, Amy. The other day I was visiting a class of the young, the brightest of the bunch, right? Princeton undergrads, right? I was visiting a friend of mine's class, teaching a journalism class. These kids did not know the word ableism.
Yes.
Like, that's how far we have to go, So sometimes I'm like, well, do I preach to the people that already know this stuff, or am I going to catch a couple people in the audience or more than a couple people that just have no idea whatsoever, of anything that I'm talking about, like I'm sure your audience, you are way hipper to this stuff than a lot of people. And I think sometimes it's just so hard, like you say, like to know. I mean, really the bigger question is who's the audience, right? Who's the audience? And how do we talk to them, and I don't know that I'm going to be doing, sighted people suck again. I actually think that I'm probably going to try and turn it into some sort of an essay format. um but I'm still wrestling. What I'm really trying to say is that I'm still wrestling with it, and that's how we can actually bring it to the other performance that I've been doing,
Yes.
that's like centric, because I think that I feel more comfortable. I mean, as much fun as it was to do the stories in this way, in this like kind of more in your face. And I got to say, the stories aren't totally different. Like, it's not a huge difference. It's just the name of the show is different. And so in Becoming Blind, it's really a lot of the same stories, but I give a little scented token that I created. I give one to every audience member for each story. So for example, for the first one, because it's at the zoo, and I do for a moment, I talk about the cedar chips that we use to use as bedding for the animals. I gave everybody these velvet, and then of course red velvet for the dramatic curtains, right? So red velvet, cedar scented rock, little tokens that each person would have and hold. But because it had a different, how do I even say it? I'm not even sure how to say it. It just had a different setting,
Yeah.
that as Becoming Blind as opposed to Sighted People Suck, that I was able to do stuff in that performance that actually spoke to people better. In other words, letting go of the in your face advocacy actually, I think, had a stronger effect.
Yeah. Got a different tone.
In some ways, especially for the sighted people, right? I think the sighted people, so that's the problem, right? Is that I feel like Sighted People Suck was like so cathartic for my blind brothers and sisters, which is really why I wanted to share that with y'all. Also, Becoming Blind wasn't a thing when we first decided to
Right.
talk. It was just a glimmer in my artist's eye, right? But so there you go, right? I think that the sighted audience really dug the scented performance. I did in fact blindfold them for the performance, and I was very clear about saying, like, look, this is not what it's like to be blind, but you don't need your eyes for this, right? You've got the scented tokens, you've got the tactile quality of the tokens, and you've got storytelling. No need for eyeballs in this story. So yeah, I guess that's the complicated answer to your complicated question, which is I'm still figuring it out.
And it's okay to keep figuring it out, because I think as performers, as storytellers, as creators, sometimes a piece of work sticks with us for a lifetime and takes
Yeah,
iterations throughout a lifetime. And sometimes you put it in a box and you set it in a corner and you come back to it in a
yeah,
couple of years and it's a completely different thing, right?
for sure.
I can't believe that you were making all of these tokens.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible for you to be hand making tokens. What was that like?
Well, in some ways, it was really great because I love this kind of artsy craftsy side of me that I haven't been able to indulge in a while. I used to make a lot more of my clothes. I do a lot of hand sewing and stuff, and I just haven't really been able to do that lately. So I got to kind of bring back to that. I I feel like there's this artist side of me that I really like. I love creating shows. And I mean, that's a problem, right? Is that
Yeah.
I love creating the shows. I don't really want to do a show over and over again,
Yeah.
Um, I I feel like I'm actually retiring these stories. This is probably the last time I'm going to do these stories for a good
Mm.
long time. Unless, somebody wants to pay me a lot of money to do
Yeah.
it, it's fine. And actually, I mean, I can't really say that that's true, because my friend Francesco, who runs the Achilles group. I don't know if you have Achilles up in Canada, but it's like a
Oh,
disabled running group. They are international, but they're in different cities. But he's the head of Achilles here in New York City. So we get together and we run, and they do, all kinds of running events and stuff. Running or walking or rolling, I should say, all of whatever powers you forward. But he wants me to do these stories like for an Achilles event. So I'll do it like that, right? And I think that he was really thinking that, you know, in terms of advocacy, and people just need to hear this stuff, because I do think that there are those in the blind community that that are still feeling really bad, you know, especially newly blind people, right, are still feeling bad and feeling like we need to fit ourselves into the sighted world. And I really want to push back on that as much as possible. Like I want to bring the sighted world to where I'm at as much as possible, you know, because otherwise inclusion is just a one-way street. Like you were saying actually earlier, right? Which was beautiful, your opening statement about the powwows and stuff. So yeah, I think that inclusion tends to be a one-way street. And I feel very strongly that that's not really inclusion, right? Anyways, I'm pontificating again.
Nope, that's totally fair. I just want to let folks in our audience know if you have thoughts or comments,
For sure.
questions for Leona.
And thank you all for being here, by the way, even though you're so silent. I wish I could hear you, but
I know.
Now I get to. Now I get to.
Yeah, now there's opportunity if folks want to, and we'll keep chatting if folks are feeling shy or don't have anything to say.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
You got a hand. Okay, so let's do, we've got Lori, and then we've got Ruth. So let's do Lori first.
Hello, Lori.
Audio now unmuted.
Sorry about that.
Hey there.
Well, when you were talking about the Lighthouse for the Blind here in San Francisco, I know where it is because I live here in the Bay Area. So
oh, fantastic.
I'm very familiar with them. I've been affiliated with them since 1988. So it's been that long since I've been affiliated with them. So
amazing.
And it's not that far of a BART ride either, which is really nice.
Oh, great.
So yeah.
Well, maybe you'll think about coming to the workshop in March.
Well, the only bad thing is I work full time during the day, and
it's on a weekend.
Oh,
no excuses.
Just kidding. Just kidding. That's the hard sell. That's the hard sell. To be honest, I don't know if there are spots left or not. So, but I think there are. I think there are.
Yeah, other things. But yeah,
I hear you.
Your story is just.
Philo has left the meeting.
I came in a little late because my attendant didn't leave right away. But your story is just like
Nancy Gilbey.
I think other people who are newly blind or don't know how to deal with a sight impairment really should really listen to you, because
thank you.
I think they would learn so much. And I wish I had this many years ago.
Me too.
When I was learning how to be a person who's sight impaired.
Yeah.
So I really think that people should hear more of this, where they can understand what we really do go through day to day.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's part of the, Amy, you asked earlier, like, what's the inspiration? I think that's a big part of it, right? Is like giving people something that I wish I had as a kid, and not having to feel that shame, right? I mean, that's the big thing, right? Feeling that shame is something that I just want to hope that no other kid has to experience.
Right. Your parents have to, because my parents didn't tell me about my eye condition until I was 16 and getting ready to go to blind school.
Oh my goodness. Yikes. Oh, surprise.
Yeah. So wow. I knew I had bad vision, but I didn't know why.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
They waited until, we're going to send you to blind school because blah. I was like, oh, thanks.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
Now that's a story.
Yeah. So but I applaud you for tonight and everything.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lori.
You're very welcome.
And now.
Thanks, Lori. Let's go to Ruth, and then we've got Sean and Christy, which I think is going to be Christy. Let's go to Ruth.
Oh. Hello, Ruth.
Have we got Ruth?
Oh, sometimes it's hard to find that all day or whatever.
I'll give it a moment. See if Ruth pops in. I know you gotta love technology, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's everything, and sometimes you just want to throw it against the wall. Okay, Ruth. Oh, somebody popping out. Ruth, we're gonna go to Sean and Christy. So keep trying to unmute yourself and we'll come back to you.
Great.
Okay, Christy, go ahead.
Yes, so it is me.
I knew it
Christy.
wasn't gonna be Sean.
I don't usually let him speak.
No, she tends to override pretty much everyone in the room.
Yeah.
Oh, it's two people.
And
Yeah.
me.
Hello.
Yes. Sean is my everything. My
Oh,
techno genius. And I'm the creative writer / English teacher. So that's why
oh,
I
nice.
popped in to say I really do love your writing.
Oh, thank you.
And I struggled too at first with I don't have a PhD, but I was trained in very British education system. So my writing was like really academic. And
Yes.
I remember, well, the way an ex of mine helped me out with that was he said, we're going to write a porn story.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, he
That's
really
good.
helped me find my voice.
Excellent.
Because you can't be academic with a porn story.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like
Then,
fun.
yeah, that's an
but-
awesome exercise.
And then I was gonna say the way I totally feel you with the line between advocacy and just telling the story.
Hmm.
And I think in my writing, I go the other way and I just tell the story. And you could feel like I was in a writing group and the sighted people would just totally get sidetracked. Like I would say something like, well, I was helping my blind ex shop for his triathlon team. And they go, wait, triathlon? I'm like, look,
Right.
did you just not miss that a doormat ex-girlfriend is helping her egotistical ex-boyfriend shop?
Right.
Like that's the point, not not the
Yeah.
whole triathlon thing. But
Yeah,
that's
not the like, how do blind people do that? Right. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
they
a
just
problem.
totally sidetracked.
Yep.
So then
Yeah.
I'm evil that way. So I'm like, oh really? So you want to have that attitude? So my next story in the group was about a blind guy meeting a date at a bar, and they got sidetracked. But see, the blind guy had a fetish and proceeds to play out this fetish, which is extremely degrading to women. And he's a sweetheart because I know him, but he's a jerk, for a nice word.
Right,
Anyway,
right.
but they totally proceed again to say, no, not a blind guy. He can't do that. I'm like, yeah, blind guys are jerks too.
Yeah.
So,
oh my goodness. Well, I have a lot to say about that in my book. And I also, in my fiction writing, for sure. Obviously there's, that's a whole nother game. And I have had that same experience in workshops as well, where they're completely not getting the fact that there's like all the same, all different kinds of blind people out there. And there's where we get back to what we're talking about, right? Where like representation can only go so far if the stories that are being told are just the same old hackneyed stuff about, like you go blind and then you become angelic or something, you're like cured of all your evilness or whatever. Oh God.
You're no longer a criminal.
That's
or a
right.
thief. Yeah.
You're no longer a jerk. Like, no, there's actually all the spectrum of humanity are also within the blind community. But yes, I feel you. I feel you.
Yeah. So that I guess that's what I wanted to say is that's how I deal with it. And it's not really, I wouldn't say I'm a very popular person in the blind community because I tend to flip it on them and go, is it the sighted people suck or that you let them bother you? I know.
Well, have you had luck getting your stories published?
I've self-published a book. And I've had some of my stories published in on online magazines.
Yeah.
And that's so not the one with the fetish. Because the guy would like absolutely kill me.
So that was a true story. Gotcha.
Yeah. and I can't do that to him.
You should.
Yeah.
Of course, Sean would say that.
Well,
But
All the
anyway,
stories about me are heroic.
yeah.
the
But
reason I
anyhow,
ask is because I have a chapter in my book where I talk about the problems that a lot of blind authors and even very prolific blind authors that, you know, like a friend of mine, Alice Eakes, who had like 35 romance novels under her belt and was trying to write a blind character. And her, you know, her editor was basically saying like, no, this is not a realistic blind character. And she, you know, because I've never seen such a blind character in like movies or TV. So I guess my point is that, you know, again, on the side of like sighted people suck, you know, that they believe what they've seen in the movies. And so when we try and tell like real stories that are part of our world, they tend to not get published as much. They tend to have a harder time getting out there into the mainstream world.
yeah, and I mean, I haven't really tried to get published in a so-called big way, so it
Right.
might be an interesting experience if I do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, and
You're welcome.
yeah.
Thanks for letting me know. Yeah,
I just wanted to say that.
that's
Thanks,
excellent.
Christy.
Thank you.
All right, we got quite a lineup here. So we've got Kathy, then we've got Megan, then we've got Nancy, and then I'll go on from there.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Kathy, you're up.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Leona. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I loved your stories. I really, I can identify with them for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, because it's so funny what people, how they react. Like they'll say, "Oh, I didn't know you couldn't see," and all this kind of thing. And they'll say, like yesterday, I had a delivery and I went down to get it in the lobby, and the guy, "Oh, are you okay? Are you okay?" He kept asking me, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Are you?" That's kind of thing.
Nice. Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
And because I thought, well, why do you keep asking me if I'm okay? And
Yes.
then the stuff that we deal with on a daily basis is just mind-boggling, really.
It really is. It really
Because
is.
when you're managing fine on your own, like I have a guide dog too, and I'm walking fine, I'm going down the stairs, and somebody will, when I'm at the top of the stairs, they'll grab me and I'll hold you, sort of thing. Yeah. And I think, well, no thanks, I don't feel safe that way. I'd rather just hang on to the railing.
Yes.
That
Yeah,
sort of
the grabbing is what I remember when I got my guide dog. I was quite, again, in my sort of shameless attempt to avoid the white cane, I thought I would get respect with the guide dog, but I went from looking like a quote unquote normal person to looking like a blind person. And I was amazed at the nerve of people to just grab you on the street. It's like, it's
Or touch your
incredible.
dog without asking.
Oh yes. Well,
Try and
Yeah.
touch your dog.
big one
Yeah.
too, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
exactly. You'll say, "Oh, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but
Oh, that's the worst when they say that. You're like,
yeah."
I
Exactly.
shouldn't, but I'm going to anyways.
yeah.
Yeah.
They just don't care, and I mean that's the other problem too, is like they just don't care, that this is something that is not just funny, not just funny, like, oh ho ho, I'm gonna pet your guide dog and it's such a joke, but it's like, no,
Yeah,
this
they
is
don't
my
eyes.
yeah, my
They don't
eyes.
think, they don't
Yeah.
think that it could affect your life.
Yeah, frustrating.
Yeah, it really is.
Sighted people
Thanks.
suck. Yeah.
Sighted people suck.
Hashtag.
Hashtag. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Kathy, for sharing that.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Megan, you're next.
Hi, Megan.
Let's give Megan a moment here. And then Nancy, you're going to be up after Megan, so you can get yourself ready to unmute. Let's give Megan a moment here. And if Megan's having trouble muting, then we'll go to Nancy and we'll come back to Megan.
Oh, can the moderators unmute people or not when they've been?
No, it's a privacy thing. They can't unmute
Ah, okay.
for folks.
Gotcha. Oh, you can only mute them. You can't
Yeah,
unmute.
yeah, that's
Gotcha.
correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so we've lost Megan. So Megan's having some kind of difficulty.
Mm.
Nancy, are you able to unmute?
Oh. I'll show you. Oop, Megan just popped back. Should we, I know we're running out of, no, is it almost time or do you
Okay.
guys go till?
Yeah, we've got a little bit of time. So Nancy,
Okay,
we're gonna
super.
put you on hold for a second because I can see that that Sue is already. Oh, no,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you, Nancy.
I'm having a hard time getting on too. It was hard to get on.
Ah, hello, Nancy. You are on.
I had to phone in 3 times.
Oh no.
We got you, Nancy.
Sorry. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy these short stories. Can I ask a dumb question? Is this a true story?
Oh,
or not?
Yes, all true. All me, all true. Yes.
Unbelievable. I love it. And
Oh,
are your
thank
books
you.
for sale? Are your books for sale?
So the only book that I have behind me right now is a very different kind of book. It's a personal and cultural history of blindness, and it's called Their Plant Eyes, and it's THERE. It's I joke that it's like a very humble project of 2,000 years of blindness in Western culture, with lots of anecdotes from me and blind friends and stuff. So really the kind of thrust of that book is, well, doing a lot of what we've been talking about, which is kind of weighing the experience of blindness against the big cultural ideas around blindness, so things like the idea of the super blind, the poet prophet, right, on the one hand, and then on the other extreme, the sort of the pitiable blind person, and trying to connect the dots of like realizing and showing how most of us just live in the middle, right? We're all sort of normal blind people, which I think for a lot of sighted people is already sort of a strange thing to even think about, right? The idea of being a normal blind person, right? So so it kind of takes it from a cultural standpoint, and then I bring it right up to today, and thinking about like the blind pride movement, and thinking about blind scientists, and all that sort of thing. So it does exist. It's pretty much any place you get your books here in America. I know it's also available. Maybe some of you guys out there can tell me, but for example, like Audible and the library system here, I know it's available. I did do some Canadian stuff. So and then of course Amazon and all that stuff. I mean, all the usual biggies. Actually, I don't know if Carrie's in the audience, but she might be able to tell us where I don't know how different the book system is in Canada from America.
And they're short stories. Are they all short stories? Like, like I'm not a really heavy reader. I just like short. Well,
they're the book that I read. The book that I wrote is much more essayistic. So each chapter is kind of its own little journey, I would say. Not so much. Yeah, not so much short stories as more like essays, I would say, but hopefully entertaining.
The one at the beginning, because when you said you went to San Diego, you got to see the snakes and everything. Oh, well, I did the same thing. I got it wrapped around my neck, and because I was blind, I didn't realize. Oh no! But they said not to panic, and I enjoyed. I go, what's around my neck? He goes, oh, just a scarf. I go, wouldn't you rather be like, I'm deaf and blind? So I go, wouldn't you rather be deaf than being blind? I go, no, I'd rather be deaf than blind. And I trying to reverse what he was saying, like like you said, when you be dead than being blind or something.
Oh my, yes.
And it made me feel like when you got the snake wrapped around you. I was in San Diego, the same question. I go, oh my God. And then how you brought the story, and that's what children want to hear, stories like that, with animals and the zoo. And you said you're playing in the band. How long did you play in the band for before you got kicked out? And the music, That's great. I love, and the boots that you're wearing. You sounded like me, but I didn't know if I colored my hair. I think I colored my hair blonde because I was East Indian. So, it's like, wow.
I love it.
Go, girl.
Yay.
Keep up the good work. I'd love to get your book.
Sounds
Oh,
I
like
want to show
thank
my
you.
Leona,
granddaughter what you're all about.
sounds like you gotta
Amazing.
put
Cooking
together an
together.
anthology.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
absolutely.
Thanks,
Excellent. And
Nancy.
actually I did, funny enough, that sort of the animals, I've just been working on a little essay that's for kids, for middle grades, that's going to be coming out, I think, next year from Faber and Faber. So, and that's all about the animals, from,
Keep us posted.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of
That's my
animal
first,
literature.
it's my first, like middle grade kids essay story. I would say it's somewhere between a story and an essay.
Oh.
All right, we've got Susan. So Sue, you're up. Then we've got Rita, and then we've got Lisa.
Yeah.
Is this Susan?
Yeah.
Hi,
Yes.
Susan.
Hi. Well, I have light perception, and I can see like when there's going to be a dark thing, like a pole or something, but not what anything looks like. It's mostly I can see reflected, but my eyelids are heavy, and because I haven't used them a lot, like they're always kind of closed. And it's like people don't believe that I have light perception. Like it's like I'm totally blind, and they say, blind people are in a world of darkness. And I said, I don't even know what that's like, because I can see the sun coming through the window, and I see little flicks when it's snowing. But I can't see who anybody is, and I can't really detect color, because I was one of those people that was premature and oxygen and all that.
Right.
But sometimes it's really hard for people to believe you.
Yes. That is another thing I talk a lot about in my book and in my work, of like how much variety there is amongst blind people, right? I mean, only like 10% of blind people have no sight at all, and an even tinier percentage were born with absolutely no sight. I mean, it's like most of us have something, right? That what I like to call the sight blindness continuum. Yeah, that we're all, we've all got our own very different ways of seeing the world.
There's this one person I know, and she asks about the blind school that I went to. And there was a school for the deaf on the same property, but a different building. And as soon as you mention the place, she tells me about how much she learned from a deaf person, and it's not even part of the conversation. And she says that every week in this group that I'm in. And I just want to, I leave it. I want to tell her to leave it be,
Right. Stop
but
it.
I really enjoyed your presentation. I think I'm going to name my cane now. I never thought of it before.
Yeah, name the cane. Name the cane. It's very powerful. I have a friend that just recently named her cane Cassandra, which I thought was pretty cool. So yeah.
That's kind of neat.
Well, it really does. It changes your attitude, I think, towards it once you give it a little respect. Right?
Next week when we gather, everybody has to share the name of their cane.
Yeah, that's right. Excellent.
That's your homework.
Super.
Okay. Thanks, Sue. We've got Rita, then we've got Lisa, and then we're going to finish with Louise.
Hey, hi, Leona. I just wanted to say I really loved your presentation, all your stories.
Thank you.
So
is this Rita? Did I get that right?
Yeah,
Rita.
Rita.
Thank you,
Yes,
Rita. Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, it was really great. And I identified with a lot of the things because I went through sight loss, during my childhood and teenage years and early adulthood and stuff like that. And and when you were saying about how you decided you didn't want to use a cane, so you applied for a dog, I did exactly the same thing. And I imagine a lot of people do that. But the really funny thing was the dog school said to me, you've got to be a competent cane user before you can get a dog. So go and take some mobility lessons, which I did, because that was, and it did help me quite a bit, the mobility lessons. But it was just really amazing that, probably a lot of people do the same thing.
I think they do.
So, yeah. So anyway, but I won't make it too long because anyway, but I just loved all the stuff, and I'll
Oh,
look for
thank
your
you.
book.
Oh,
I'll look for your
fantastic. That
book
makes
as
me so
well. Yeah.
happy. Thank you,
Yeah.
Rita. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rita. Okay, Lisa is up.
Hello.
Hello, Lisa.
Hello. My hand was raised, kind of inspiration of first of all, I loved your stories, great stories.
Thank you.
Inspired by Kathy's comments relating to guide dogs and how people kind of treat. I had one last year coming up for 5 months. I'm going to be reapplying. But I have a story that happened at the same station twice within about a 10-week span. And the first time was worse than the second time, but I'd only been home a week and a few days or something with the dog. And so I had come through on the Canada line. I know being in New York, you don't know what that is, but I had to transfer from our Canada line to the Expo line down at Waterfront Station. So I decided I came through the station, go through the gates up for the second set of train. Then I just turned the corner with the dog and headed towards the stairs, which I pretty well knew where was kind of, and well, 3 onlookers came up and said, well, you know, the elevator and escalators are over here and you could use them and stuff. And I go, no, I am fine. They go, are you sure? And as I turned and took the railing of the thing, you could almost hear all 3 of them gasp, like as if, and I think I even heard one say, that's dangerous. I mean, what part of my eyes are that was not my legs.
I know. They want to like pile the disabilities on us, right? It's like, my goodness.
Yeah. And like I said, about 10 days later, it kind of happened the same thing. I was just more comfortable to grab the stairs and go down them, and somebody else had approached me and tried to tell me where the escalator and elevator was. But I'm like, wow, twice in short period of time.
Yeah, I don't even know why like an escalator would be all that much better. But anyway, who knows? Who knows what they're thinking?
I was trained with the dog on the escalator. It's just them too.
No, I mean, in their minds, like why they thought that the escalator would be safer for you, you know, than like
the moving stairs versus the non-moving stairs.
Yeah. So that's the story I wanted to share.
Oh, thank you.
Those ableist assumptions.
Oh, yes.
All
over.
Thanks, Lisa. And Louise.
Hello, Louise.
Hello. Okay. Your stories really made me smile tonight. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I love it when I think I was on one other time you've been here. And you said something, I think, a story.
No.
Okay. Something about the zoo I thought triggered something in my brain.
You'll have to let me know what that triggered if you ever think of it. Yes.
But that's what I was going to share was I was born with light perception. I had surgeries as a kid with congenital cataracts, and then I had sight until I was 13. Like I was a low B3, which means about 6% of my vision, the most. I got detached retina and 13, lost one eye, 15, struggled with getting some sight back with that one. Went down pretty low, but all the years until I've lost it fully. And something you said tonight really hit my mind. How many things do I imagine I can see when I look at something, you know, because I've seen it.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, but going back to when I was in high school, I had an English teacher who made us write a chapter of a book. And she says, write what you know about. Well, I started sitting down and writing. I was not a good speller. If I could sit there and dictate and have someone do the actual typing, well, I can type it now, but I'd love to sit down and write some stories because I love reading. Reading is my world.
Oh, well, then you should definitely write. Yeah, for sure.
But I have an English problem where my spelling and grammar is bad. But the point is I love to share stories because there's so many different kind of neat things you can share, and your imagination can go because you've been in that world. You can, you know, you can really relate and understand. And each of us have different stories to tell. I love to put a book of stories together that each blind person could share a couple stories or a few, short stories and put it together, because it would be neat to hear it from all sides. It's something I've always thought would be unique. And tonight you reminded me of that. I hadn't thought of it for years, but it's something that, because one person's comfortable with, as my sister just said, walking down the stairs, we're sisters, and me, I instantly go for the elevator and memorize where they are. So, so each of us have different tools and things. So the world reacts to us differently too, And as a guide dog user, I won't forget the day that was most scary. I was walking across the street and someone decides I couldn't walk across the street. They literally grabbed my arm and dragged me across the street.
Oh, yes.
And I'm like trying to let go. I'm trying to let my dog do their job.
Yeah.
That I think is the most scary moment I ever had.
Yeah. Speaking of stories, I mean, I think this needs to happen more often, but Amy, I think you had oh my God, I'm forgetting his Robert. Is it Robert Kinkett?
Robert
Yeah,
Kinkett.
yeah. That because he had a book of fiction stories. In fact, I do have a story in that book. But he was here, right, presenting that book. I think with some of the
he was here.
some of the writers.
There were 4 writers, I think, in the space, and he's coming back. And a couple.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Science fiction stuff. So, but there needs to be more. But there needs to be more for sure.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's always special when we get to have blind storytellers in this space.
Yeah.
Well, Leona, it's been really lovely having you in the space, and I know that you're joining us from the future, as are many of our guests. But it's always lovely when our presenters join us from the future, because well, I just value your time. Oh, that sounds awful. Like I don't value everybody's time. I value everybody's time. But you've done a lot of performing tonight, and I know that that's heavy lifting emotionally. So I just want to thank you for bringing that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really thought I would have, like great clips to share with you and stuff. But I so appreciated having the time and chatting with you and getting to meet some of your lovely audience. It's just been wonderful. So thank you.
I certainly hope this isn't the last time that you're in the space. Who knows? There's always, like Louise says, there's always stories to be told. So
there's always stories to be told.
That's right.
Words to live by.
Maybe other opportunities to have you share some work in this space, or to have some people collaborate on some things. We just got to find some dough.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. Projects can be done at any time. You just got to find some money. So if anybody knows what grant we can write for,
that's right.
Find some money.
Yeah, I still want to get you over to New York and do something here. Right. So
that would be
one of these days. One of these days.
We're committed. We just got to find the way to do it. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Heck yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, until
just take all of us with you, okay, Amy?
That's right. A whole caravan.
That's right. A whole caravan. I love it. I love it.
The VocalEye caravan.
Yeah, we're all going to come and see you.
Linda Barton.
Fantastic.
It's been a real.
Well, I wrote a story once about somebody that was, I think
Sharon has left for me.
I think she was blind, and it ended up that I had to kill her off at the end of the story because I couldn't find another ending.
Oh.
And so she goes out in the desert and dies of exposure, and that's the end.
Oh my gosh, that's
brutal.
We're gonna have to hear more about that, Sue. But
yes,
for now, let's wish our friend Leona a lovely evening.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
for being here.
VocalEye, vocaleye.ca. Special thanks to our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the British Columbia Arts Council, the Province of British Columbia, and the City of Vancouver.